So thank you, everyone, and welcome to our employment series. We wanted to run a series of workshops that would provide information and resource for people with disabilities who are looking for employment, either full-time, part-time, just a variety of opportunities. And we thought, what better way to start our series than listening to a presentation by the ODSP. I'll let Margaret and Kathy sort of tell you a little bit more about that, but we just thought it'd be a great way to start because I know that's a question on a lot of people's minds if you are receiving ODSP already. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Margaret and Kathy.
Thank you, Dan. So my name's Margaret Nix, and I'm a caseworker at the Ontario Disability Support Program in Cambridge. And Kathy is my lovely co-worker who also works out of the same office. So we thank you for inviting us here today to go over the ODSP Employment Supports Program. And just to let you know that Employment Supports does provide employment-related goods and services to help people with disabilities find and keep jobs. Participation in the program is totally voluntary for the recipient of ODSP. However, any non-disabled person's part of that person's file, they are required to participate in some sort of employment-related activity or be attending school on a full-time basis. And you don't have to be in receipt of ODSP to participate in employment supports. You just have to be deemed a person with a disability.
Okay, so employment supports can provide job placement assistance, job retention supports to people with disabilities who are ready, willing, and able to work and keep their jobs.
Sorry, just hold on one second. Did you want me to start the presentation?
Oh, yeah, sorry, Dan. Yes, go ahead.
Oh,
all right. Oh, sorry. I thought you were just introducing yourselves, and then I'm thinking they're giving a lot of information. So yeah. All right, hold on one second.
Yeah, my apologies. We're
Mine
new
as
to this as well. Yeah.
All right.
There we go.
So now we can jump ahead.
Yeah. So we'll be on the.
So are we on the second slide then?
One more.
Yep.
There we go.
All right. My apologies. Go ahead.
So employment supports can help advance current career, support people with disabilities who are starting their own business, and help meet their business needs by providing supports. So with respect to that, we do have service providers. However, there's only one service provider in the Cambridge area that helps when recipients are starting their own business.
Yeah, that would be Lutherwood, right? Is it Lutherwood?
Correct.
Yeah. So just a quick overview. In order to be eligible for employment supports, you must be 16 years of age or older. You must have a physical or mental impairment that is continuous or reoccurring, lasting 1 year or more, and present a substantial barrier to employment. You have to have the intention and be able to work and prepare for competitive employment. And you must be a resident of Ontario and legally entitled to work in Canada. So, employment services available to participants: job preparation, workshops, resume writing, interviewing. They give you access to computers, job banks, telephones, faxes, referrals to job counseling, short-term specific job training, information on who's hiring, job development and job placement, workplace training and coaching. So those are a few of the things. So with the job retention, accommodation, support advice, funding for exceptional work-related devices such as assistive devices, and assistance with developing a plan to become self-employed.
There's also job placement or job trials, and they help you practice interviews, interview skills to improve your confidence.
So exceptional work-related disability support. While employers are expected to meet their obligations under the Accessibility for Ontario's with Disabilities Act, limited funding is available to service providers for the purchase of exceptional work-related disability supports to assist those who have more complex employment barriers. So some examples of exceptional work-related disability supports would be assistive devices and adaptive technical equipment that you might need, any job-specific communication skill training to address disability-related needs. So to provide ASL, Braille, remedial writing for learning, time limited on the job support, such as sign language interpreter, an intervener, reader, and note taker services.
So the roles and responsibilities. So I'm not going to go over this point by point, but I'll tell you that with respect to the employment supports, caseworkers' responsibility from ODSP are to act as a liaison between the recipient and the service provider. So there's a couple of touch points on that. So recipient can actually go to the ODSP worker or can go to the service provider and fill out an application and have that sent on to the ODSP program, and then we can refer the client back to the service provider. Or the recipient can come to ODSP, fill out the application. For income support recipients, it's a small application, just basically about the background, your member ID, how many jobs you've had, that type of thing. And then we do a welcome to ODSP. Whereas if you touch with the service provider first, they can do all that, send the documentation to us, and then ask us to forward a referral to them. So if anything were to go wrong in that process, with respect to that, we would act as the middle person. So if there was an issue with either side, the caseworker works with both sides to work the issues out, and hopefully we can come to an agreement. Typically, there isn't too many issues with that, but it's a really nice process, especially when the person comes to you and they know who they want to work with as a service provider already. Next, Dan.
So I know a very popular question is, how does employment earnings affect your ODSP entitlement? Some people in receipt of ODSP always worry, if I make too much, am I going to be cut off? How much am I allowed to work? General rule of thumb is you are always better off working, even though we do deduct. When you look at your entire monthly income, you will always be further ahead working. So, if you are working, the way you would report your income would be, you must report any earnings received from the first day of the month and the last day of the month by the 7th of the following month. So for example, any pays that you receive from March 1st to March 31st would then be reported and required to be reported to ODSP by April 7th. Any April pay stubs by May 7th. So it's always the 7th of the following month. If you receive 250, oh, I'm sorry, I might have backtracked there. So that's what I just explained. Sorry about that. Keep your pay stubs and any receipts for expenses. We may ask you to provide them when we review your case. And the first 200 of your monthly net income is exempt from ODSP. We then deduct 50% of your monthly net after the first 200. So for example, if you earned 400 in the month, the first 200 would be free and clear. So we would only look at deducting 50% of the 200 left over. So that would be $100.
I just want to add to that, Margaret, that the other important piece about the pay stubs is when you are on employment supports, you also need to provide those pay stubs to the service provider.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
So we'll go to the next one, please. So single person receipt of ODSP with a $1,500 net monthly income from employment. So that's after they take off taxes. So your mandatory taxes. So when we break it down, we're going to talk about entitlement for a single person. So, excuse me. There's $672 for basic needs and $479 for shelter, which brings us to the amount of $1,169 for ODSP entitlement for a single person. So if that single person has $1,500 after taxes, we would minus the $200, which would give us the $1,300, and then divide it by 50%, which would give us $650. We would then take the $650 from the single entitlement, $1,169 minus the $650 from earnings, and then you would end up with $519 entitlement. When you get that $519, because you worked, provided your pay stubs, you also get a work-related benefit in the amount of $100, which gives you $619 from ODSP. So your total income for the month is $1,500 from employment, plus your $619 from the entitlement, and so thereby your income is $2,119. So you've increased your monthly income by $950, and you still have your benefits, which is fabulous.
So the work-related benefit, each adult member of the benefit unit or the ODSP file who earns income from employment, a training program, or has a positive net income from the operation of a business is eligible for a monthly amount of $100 for the work-related benefit. So if you had the recipient of the program, the spouse, the dependent adult, they would all be eligible for the $100 work-related benefit if they had a positive net income in that month. The benefit is provided each month the member has income from employment or a training program or a net positive income from the operation of a business. If there is no earnings in that particular month, then you would not be eligible for the work-related benefit.
Okay, employment startup benefit. So again, this is a benefit of ODSP. So it is $500 in any 12-month period. So when you're beginning or changing employment, or you begin an employment assistance activity under the Ontario Works Act, or you begin any other activity intended to help the person to become employed or stay employed. So the kind of things that we can help with: clothing, uniforms, license or association fees, transportation costs, post-secondary application fees, grooming costs, the cost of tools and equipment that are required for a job. So, and it's good to remember that, you know, maybe you did start a new job and you only needed $250. Maybe you needed a uniform and some transportation money, and maybe you needed some application fee costs, then we could issue $250. And if you continue to work and maybe decided that you needed a little more funding to help you get to the next step, then we could issue the rest of that. So know that if you don't use it up in that 12 months, if you only use 200, you can come back and request a little bit more. And that's always a conversation you can have with the caseworker.
So also through ODSP, we would assist with upfront childcare costs. So eligible members of the benefit unit may receive financial assistance with upfront childcare costs that are reasonably necessary. And in the opinion of the director, the eligible member is required to pay in advance to allow the person to begin or change or maintain their employment. Begin, change, or maintain an employment assistance activity under the Ontario Works Act, or begin and change or maintain any other activity intended to assist the person to become and stay employed. So that being said, if childcare costs were a barrier for you to begin or maintain your employment, you would contact your caseworker and we could issue upfront childcare costs in order for you to be successful.
So childcare deductions, childcare expenses can be deducted from employment earning, training wages, or business income of a recipient, spouse, or dependent adult when calculating chargeable income. So you don't actually see this piece of it. It's deducted from the earnings themselves. So childcare expenses are deducted from the employment earnings, training wages, or business income up to the established maximums. So Margaret's going to get into the difference between licensed and unlicensed and the amounts that can be paid for those.
So licensed childcare would be something like a daycare center where childcare is provided by a licensed provider. The actual costs of childcare are eligible as a deduction from the recipient's monthly net employment earnings, training wages, or business income. There's no maximum when it's licensed childcare. Unlicensed childcare, where the childcare is provided by an unlicensed provider, the actual costs of the childcare are eligible as a deduction up to $600 per child per month. The amount is the same for all children, including children who require childcare for special circumstances. The unlicensed informal childcare can be provided by a wide variety of caregivers, including relatives, friends, neighbors, community members, or nannies. An informal provider may provide care for up to 5 children in addition to his or her own children.
Okay. So I'm just going to add a little piece to that with respect to that. Again, anything with ODSP, the verification of it. So whether it's licensed or unlicensed, we would want the verification of that.
Yeah,
and there are forms for that. Okay, so health benefits. So if you're no longer eligible for ODSP income support because your income is too high and you have high health costs, you might be eligible for extended health benefits. So when you're earning more than what we can pay out, we don't just say, okay, we're going to take you off the program. We have a couple of safety nets in place, and extended health benefits is one of those. So depending on your healthcare needs, the extended health benefit may help with the cost of prescription drugs, dental care, vision care, medical supplies, diabetic supplies, incontinence supplies, transportation for medical appointments, assisted devices, including hearing aids. So if an ODSP recipient is eligible for the extended health benefit, a child or a spouse who is 17 years of age or younger will continue to receive dental coverage through Healthy Smiles Ontario. just as a good note. And what we do with respect to the extended health benefits is a calculation, basically in-house, that's based on your prescription cost and your other medical needs against your entitlements. So it's kind of complicated, so we won't go into that piece. But if you don't qualify for this, then you may qualify for the next one that Margaret will take us to.
Right. So if you don't qualify for extended health benefits because your monthly health related costs are not high enough, but your employer does not offer benefits or comparable benefits to ODSP, then we would approve you for the transitional health benefit. So the transitional health benefit would cover prescription drugs, dental benefits, vision care, including routine eye examinations, and batteries and repairs for mobility devices. So just to summarize, even though you are working and your income exceeds ODSP, if you do not have benefits or comparable benefits through your employer, we would still offer that to you.
Yeah. So the other thing to add to that piece of it is we still require the pay stubs, even though you're receiving a different program on extended health benefits or transitional health benefits. It's something to keep in mind. You still need to continue to send those in because that is what tells us what you're eligible for. And there are times when a recipient of ODSP will go in and out of eligibility based on their income. So you could get extended health benefits for a couple months, and then all of a sudden you could be eligible to receive funds again from ODSP. So it's all based on a calculation. So
and two, even if you were eligible for extended health benefits or transitional and your circumstances change, whether you stop working due to health issues or you lose your job for any other purpose, all that we have to do is determine financial eligibility and we bring you right back onto the program.
Yeah. So, and that just gives you a little snapshot of where the Cambridge office is located and the Kitchener office is located.
Yeah, and if you have any questions at any time, even if your caseworker is not available, that's all just general information that can be provided. But leave a message for your caseworker. We would be happy to call you back and answer any questions that you have.
Sorry, I'll leave that up for a little longer. People, I realized I stopped sharing there a little soon. For anybody who wants to take down the phone number or email addresses, I'll leave that up for a couple of minutes. Well, thank you so much. That was a really informative presentation.
Good.
I would imagine you hear all sorts of these questions on a regular basis when it comes to income support and how it's affected.
Yes.
So I've got some questions here for you that have been entered. So the first question is, how do you you talked about childcare. It says, how do you verify childcare? Do you need a receipt?
Yes. Yes. So typically what somebody would do when they are submitting their pay stubs, along with that, they would provide their receipt for childcare costs. Those childcare costs come right off of your monthly net income prior to being deducted from your ODSP entitlement. So you would typically provide that when you provide your pay stubs.
So just to add on to that. So I mean, for example, if you're, I mean, let's say you've got children and you're getting your cousin to watch them for a couple hours a day. What sort of verification then do you need? I mean, obviously it's not a business, it's not somebody registered, it's just a family member, but obviously you're paying them. So what do they do? Just write a note saying that I'm like, is that how simple does it get?
It could be that simple.
Yep.
Preferably, you would want to provide, we do have the forms for licensed or unlicensed, which would include the person's name and their telephone number. So if we were so inclined, if we needed to, we could verify. So
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay, so I've got a few questions coming in now. Melissa, I see that you have your hand raised. Did you want to verbally ask a question?
Yeah. Hi guys.
Hi.
I just want to ask, like, the 619. I'm not really understanding that calculation. So if you, I know you take off like 250, but I don't know how to word this. So
Sorry,
like,
which calculation was that, Melissa? It sort of broke up a little bit when you said it.
the 619.
Oh, how they figured out how you calculated the monthly income
Oh.
support minus the employment. Did you want me to go back to that screen on the PowerPoint or?
Sure.
Sure.
All right, just give me a second. There we go.
There it is. So Melissa,
Yep.
so you're not understanding which part, how we get the new ODSP entitlement?
Yes, I believe that's what it is.
Okay. So this example is based on a single person. So
Which I am. So
okay. So as a single person in receipt of ODSP, the maximum they can get for basic needs is 672. Oh,
right.
Sorry
and
about that.
that's okay. And the maximum shelter is 479. So that brings your ODSP entitlement to 1169 for the month. That's without any employment income. Okay.
So that's what you should be getting.
Well, depending on your shelter costs, if your shelter is less than, actually, this is an old example. It should be 497, not
Yeah.
79. Sorry about that. That's a typo. It should be 497. That would bring it 1169. If your shelter costs are below 497, then you would only get the actual cost. So if your rent was $300 inclusive, then that is all that the person would receive for shelter.
Say your rent's like around 200, 250.
Yeah.
If
Yep. So then, yes, that's what you would receive for shelter. If your shelter costs are below 497, then you would receive the actual cost. So if your shelter is 250, and you have no other shelter expenses, like you don't pay hydro or gas, then 250 would be what you would receive for shelter.
because I'm getting a lot lower than the 11.
Yeah.
It's a lot, sorry, but I'm getting a lot lower than the 1100 that you just told me about.
Okay. Can I ask a question, Melissa?
Yeah,
It's
go
Kat.
for it.
Okay, so what are you paying right now for your rent? And do you pay hydro or union gas with it?
I get hydro, and what's the other? Like all the utilities through ODSP.
Okay, so when you look at your statement, do you look at your statement each month that comes in the mail?
I can't really read it, but I know
Okay.
what the basics are of it.
Okay, so it would be your shelter, what you're receiving, which includes if you had hydro and union gas, plus your basic needs. And are you working right at the moment?
No, that's
Okay,
why I wanted to jump on here to see it, like if it would and affect it more.
you're
Right.
always, sorry,
If I went on it.
you're always further ahead to work. So
Yeah.
you are more than welcome to put in an application for employment supports. And what I would recommend to you is to call your caseworker and have a discussion one-to-one on what that would look like. So what I've done several times, and I'm sure Margaret has in the past as well, is write it out for the person so that they can see on paper, what does this look like? And then you can take that example with you. We'll always be willing to help you figure out how much your ODSP is going to be if you work.
Yeah.
And even if you have questions about how much you're receiving, you also might want to give your caseworker a call, because it could be that you're not receiving the amount you should be.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I think I should be receiving a little bit more than I am.
Yeah, so that's something you might want to speak with your caseworker about, because sometimes your shelter costs change. And if you've forgotten to submit that, or there's been an adjustment and we don't know, it could be that you're not receiving all of the money you should be. So it's probably a good conversation to have with your caseworker, just to make sure that you're receiving the maximum that you should be receiving.
What if you and your caseworker, your communication is very, I don't know the right term for it, but very like, not very friendly?
Oh,
Oh, we're sorry you're experiencing that,
Yeah.
Melissa. So that is a discussion with the manager. So you could always call into the office and ask for the manager's extension. If you're having issues communicating with your caseworker, then you definitely need to call in.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for all your help.
oh, you're welcome, Melissa.
All righty. So next we have another question. I think this is back to the maybe back to the child benefit. I'm not sure. It says if you have children, do they just get the child care until they are an adult? So I guess I guess maybe if you have a child, maybe with a disability, and you have to pay for care.
Okay.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, Kathy, do you know if there's a maximum age requirement for?
Yeah, I believe there is for the daycare piece of it, but I'm
Yeah.
not entirely sure I think we're getting into some areas that are pretty variable.
Yes.
So I'm not 100% sure. We would actually have to look and do a little research ourselves, because that would
Yeah.
be an anomaly for
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
if they, yeah.
And depending on the child's disability, if they receive services from other community agencies such as developmental services, like we can get into a whole bunch of different scenarios, they may be able to even claim that expense through a different community agency. So we would really need to get down to the specifics of that particular scenario and see there might be other avenues where they could tap into funding.
Okay, great. Thank you. A question here says, if I need a PSW to assist me at my job, can I provide my own, or should I provide my own, or is this service provided?
Ooh, I would think that you would need to provide. I don't know that they, Kathy, do you know the answer to that question?
No, I believe it would be through the service provider. So that would be a question better aimed at the service provider themselves, because we don't know with regards to the particular services, like if there's job coaching required, how long would they get that job coaching? Or in this case, yeah, it is one of those questions that is better placed with the actual service provider.
Correct. And again, if you are in receipt of passport funding or any type of funding like that, you may be able to tap into that resource to pay for that cost as well.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And then right now we have one more question, unless there's more to come in. The final question is, how do you qualify for transitional health benefits? So in your presentation, I think there was a distinguish between, I forget the first type of health benefits, but the transitional one where I think you had said something that if your monthly medical expenses don't exceed a certain amount.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the differentiation is this. So one is based on monthly health related costs, and it's a calculation we do in-house. So it's pretty complicated, so we won't get into that piece. The difference is transitional health benefits provides you with your benefits only until the employer has comparable benefits. And we all know sometimes, especially if there's a temp agency you're working through, there's no benefits. So you could potentially be on transitional health benefits for a period of time.
Yep.
Okay. So there's no like time limit, like 3 months or?
No.
There is not. And so with the transitional health benefits, that becomes an agreement. So you need to provide the verification that your employer doesn't have those benefits, and then agree to the terms of transitional health benefits by providing your signature and dating and sending us some information back. But
would that include somebody who's waiting for benefits to kick in? I mean, a lot of employers don't offer benefits right away. You have to wait a period of time. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm actually doing, I just had that conversation with the recipient of the program the other day, whereby she's making really excellent money and she's waiting for her benefits to come through. So absolutely, we're going to cover those benefits until she gets her own. And then she would just pick up the phone and let me know when she has them, and then we would end it.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay.
And even though there may, if your employer never offers benefits, there's no time limit per se, but we may review that with you every 12 months. So we may put it into the system for a 12-month period. And then when those 12 months are up, we may ask you to provide something from your employer, just indicating that you continue to have no benefits with them.
Well, you know, and I'll speak personally here. I mean, I find that really good to hear. I mean, I've been with ODSP / employed for the past 20 years, off and on, job changes and whatnot. And I know that before, a long time ago, I'm not sure that transitional benefits was a thing, or if it was, I certainly didn't know about it. So it's nice to hear, because yeah, I mean, somebody may be full-time employed but not have benefits. And as a person with disability, you know, if the choice is work part-time with benefits or work full-time with no benefits, especially with mobility equipment costs, you know, that's a very real decision to make.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
And one of the things they added to the transitional health benefits, which is fabulous because they didn't have it on there before, was necessary repairs to mobility devices. Previously, we did not have that. So yeah, and I can't remember when the inception of transitional health benefits started, but it hasn't always been something we've offered.
Well, that's great to hear.
Yeah, it is good. There's a couple of safety nets. So for the person that's worried about working, don't worry about working. There's those safety nets. And even if you go off the program due to your income and you don't qualify for extended health benefits or transitional health benefits, if you go off the program and for instance, 3 months down the line, you lose your job, you can always be rapidly reinstated to ODSP. Now, having said that, you need to know that if you did have eligibility for EI, you would have to apply because, of course, ODSP is a last income resort. But you know, for the person that would do 2 or 3 months, they probably wouldn't qualify for EI, so they could be rapidly reinstated based on their financial circumstances. So, and even if they had a medical review that was past the date, we would still bring them onto the program and just notify the powers that be to send the medical review. And while they were waiting for that, they could have the assistance again. So it really is a fabulous program.
It is.
Yeah, I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say that this presentation was so enlightening. And that is something I really took from it, is that it's so positive, you know, when you're saying it always makes sense to work. Because I've heard from people that they're so scared to work and to lose their benefits. And you know, am I going to lose dollar for dollar and all that kind of stuff? But it sounds like it's always, you know, for many reasons, it's a good thing to work. But it's not a risk of losing out on anything, including the medical benefits. So that's wonderful.
Yep,
it's great to hear.
Absolutely.
How does so I think Margaret, you had said that even if you're not receiving ODSP, you can still access employment support. So how would someone do that? Would they just contact the ODSP office directly?
Yep. Okay. They can contact the ODSP office directly, or they can also go through the service provider directly.
Okay.
Yep.
So sorry, Margaret, the only difference between is that the person that's not on ODSP, so a non-income support recipient, would have to do a verification of disability with their employment support application. So that's the piece that is important for the service provider, for sure.
Yeah,
okay.
They would have to have that completed by their healthcare professional, whereas if they were on income support, that piece is not required.
Okay, and so I know there's tons and tons, but is there a couple, like maybe 2 or 3 just quick examples of employment supports that someone would access, like, so technology, or what does that look like?
So okay, so somebody that gets out into the workforce, they're successful, they get the job. So the idea between the service provider and the recipient is to make a plan, right? What is it they would like to do? What is it they feel they could do? And then maybe some, you know, depending on their work history, maybe they needed a little volunteer work before they actually get out there and do that. And then with respect to support, say they needed a job coach. So someone that would help them on the job. It would be a number of hours. But again, the service provider end is just that. We're kind of separate entities, right?
Yes.
So we more act as a liaison when there's an issue. And then we help if there was an issue between the service provider and the recipient, we help. I don't
just
even
navigate that,
Yeah.
navigate that, or if that relationship breaks down, then we would be the person that would do the referral, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay, great. I was just thinking if I had a consumer who said, I want to work, but this is a barrier, then potentially this could be the right place to turn.
Yeah, the whole
Yes.
idea of employment supports is to remove disability-related barriers,
Perfect.
right?
Okay.
So that's their piece of it. That's their job.
And the service provider will support that person through the employment
Yeah.
process and carry on for up to 3 years
Hmm.
of them being employed.
Okay, that's great to hear. Thank you so much.
So I have another question that's come in. It says, I have tried to find employment with the ODSP a few years ago, and they ran into roadblocks with my complex physical disability. Should I try again? I've been volunteering instead.
Okay.
Oh. So I personally would think, why not?
Sure.
There's
And-
no
and-
reason why you can't.
Yeah, and perhaps maybe try a different service provider. You know, there's a few out there that maybe that just with that service provider, that person didn't have good results, but perhaps somebody else might be able to assist better.
And there's something to keep in mind is when you do the employment support application, if you're an ODSP recipient and it comes straight to ODSP, we actually send out a list of service providers along with a list of questions that you might want to ask the service provider. So as a person basically looking for that service provider, you may want to talk to each service provider to see what each individual service provider can provide, because they may have some different services available, and one might be better at one thing. You know, maybe one's better at job coaching and the other one's better at I don't know, resume writing, just as an example. I mean, there's so much.
Well, and I think that, Kathy, that's actually a really great promo for the next couple of weeks of our employment series. Next week, we're joined by CCRW, and they're going to lead us through some service provider support. And then in the week following, we're being joined by somebody from the Working Center who's actually going to do a little bit of a workshop on resume writing. So
Awesome.
yeah, so we're all over the map here. No, that's fantastic. I don't have any other questions that have come in. Oh, Melissa, I see now, is your hand up? Is that up again, or is that still up from before?
It's up again.
Okay, go ahead.
So what is the difference between a service provider and a employer?
Okay. So a service provider is a community agency that would assist you in preparing for, finding employment, and supporting you through the employment. The employer is who you would be working for.
So is a service provider, like example, the Working Center?
You got it.
Is that kind of, because I struggle with them trying to get connected to a job. Long story short, they left me in tears because they were like, well, you need to go back to school for to get the job that you want, and I can't go back to school.
Okay.
School is just too much for my mental health.
Right. And is the Working Center, well, they're not on our list of service providers. Have you tried working with another agency, Melissa, or is that the only agency that you've been working with?
That's the only one that I know of. That's the only one I got in touch with.
Okay.
I don't have any other services.
Yeah, so that's another thing that you could ask your caseworker. You could let them know that you're interested in applying for employment supports, and we could absolutely give you a list of service providers you can give them a call and investigate by asking some questions and just determine who you think would best be able to suit your needs and support you through that process. But there are other agencies out there that maybe you might be willing to try.
So it's basically a bridge between employment and like the working couple, for example, is a bridge between being employed and being filled. So is that a correct assumption?
I'm sorry, Melissa, I missed your question. I'm having difficulty hearing you.
Is it a correct assumption to say that it's like a bridge between I don't know what I'm trying to say.
So
Like-
are you asking if the service provider is like a bridge to employment? Yes.
Employment, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So Melissa, so just if you're interested, so and I'm sure you plan on attending our other sessions because we do have some service providers that are actually going to be joining us to talk about how you can make those connections. You know, so the role of ODSP, they can refer you to a service provider, but you don't need to go through ODSP to get a job. Like you can just get a job on your own, right? And then it just becomes about reporting your income. But if you want to, Melissa, I'm fairly knowledgeable about some of these things. So if you want to reach out to me, maybe we can chat, or I can certainly connect you with somebody who could answer some more complex questions.
Okay, I'll give you an email and we'll connect. I'm going for surgery pretty soon, so it might be like early May before I can.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, obviously, whenever you're ready, you know my email. You know where I am.
Yep.
All right, awesome. Listen, guys, I'm just being mindful of the time. We have another question here. You know, where do we find a list of service providers? So I think maybe what we could do at this point, if you have any other additional questions like that, I don't, unless Margaret and Kathy, if you have a quick answer to that, but.
We have a list of service providers at the office, so you can contact your caseworker. If you're not in receipt of ODSP, just you can make connection with the local office and we'd be happy to provide that to you.
Perfect. All right, folks. Well, listen, thank you very much. I want to thank Kathy and Margaret. That was an excellent presentation, and it's a question that's on a lot of people's minds for sure. And then Sherry and I, as community resource coordinators, you've certainly given us some information that we can use to pass on to individuals as well. So
Great.
really appreciate that. So thanks everyone for coming. And yeah, next week, we also have CCRW coming in, the Canadian Council on Rehabilitation and Work. They are a service provider that can talk about some of their support. So keep your eyes open for the email on Monday that will have all of the details about that. Otherwise, thanks guys, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.